Hello and welcome to, sadly, the last episode of the season. And we are starting the show by asking a controversial question. Is the BMW R1250 GS Adventure really still a GS? I want to pose a question to you. But before I do, I want you to understand where this question is coming from. Bikes change. They get updated and they grow, both in size and abilities over time. But a name continues through a brand. Let me give you an example. Take Triumph with their Tigers. From the old 1937 Tiger 80 to the modern day Tiger 900 Rally Pro, although they have the same name, in the 84 years between the two models, the bikes are as different as white wine and champagne. So accepting that bikes with the same name change over time, is a BMW GS still really a GS? Now, of course, this isn't a question about whether the BMW R1250 GS Adventure is or isn't a good or even a great bike. There is no doubt this machine is an awesome feat of engineering. It's a market leader for a reason, and despite it not being orange, I like it very, very much. Every time we've reviewed a variant of the bike on the show, to my regular question, would I have one in my garage? The answer has been a firm yes. I owned an 1150 GS Adventure some time ago and it was a great bike. But if we look back at the old BMW R80 GS and R100 GS, they are completely different kettles of fish. These bikes were originally built to be 50-50 bikes, so half on-road and half off-road. In fact, and brace yourselves, as you may not know this, GS stands for Gelandestraße, which in English is off-road street. Noting, of course, that off-road comes first. Essentially, BMW set out to make an adventure bike that was more oriented to being off the beaten track than on it. You know what I mean, more off-road than on-road. You get what I'm saying. You could, of course, argue that BMW have just moved with the times. Back in the 80s, there was far less tarmac in the world, and therefore, adventure bikes needed to be able to handle more off-road than they do now. There is no getting away from the fact that when a bike goes from weighing 186 kilos wet, as the R80 did, to weighing 268 kilos, hardcore off-road adventures are no longer the bike's target market. And this leads me back to that question. Is this bike really still a GS, a Gelandestraße, or is it now mostly a Straße? However you feel, you can't deny that you will no longer get the same feeling from a brand new GS as you did in the 80s with the lighter R80 and 100s. I mean, they used to use them as enduro machines. The GS80 from 1978, which inspired the R80 GS, won 2 gold medals at the International 6 Days Enduro. But what if you could get that feeling back? What if you could still have that great boxer engine in a lighter configuration? What if you could still have the ground clearance and even the old school look of the R80 and the R100, but in a new bike? Well, now you can. This is the R90 Scrambler. But today, I'm going to be riding something a little bit special, the BMW R90 Urban GS 40-year edition. And if you want a true successor to the R80 GS, this might just be the bike for you. It keeps the modern and fantastic oil and air-cooled Boxer 1170cc engine, shaft drive and 6-speed transmission, while still giving you the look of those old-school GSs. BMW have gone back to the standard telescopic forks, opting to do away with the telelever system the big GSs have been using all the way back since the R1100 GS. The real question is, can you still get the feel of the old GS? And we can only really answer that by going out and riding it. The R9T as a model has been around since 2013, and BMW have built quite a few variants over the years, with the current ones being the R9T, Pure, Scrambler, and the Urban GS. The Urban GS has the same chassis and wheels as the Scrambler, but as you can see, it's a very different look. Most striking, of course, is that classic black and yellow paint scheme, with specific GS detailing on the seat, tank and windscreen, 1200 lettering on the tank, and all set off by the gold rims and yellow handguards. I've been riding the bike for a few hours now, and I wanted to share my first impressions. Now, on many levels it would be entirely unfair to compare this bike to the GS 1250 because they are entirely different bikes, but I'm going to do just a little bit of that. I want to talk about the weight to start with. I mean, this bike weighs 20% less than the big GS, so unsurprisingly it handles very differently. It tips in very quickly into corners because you've got far less weight to push in, and that makes the handling both quick and actually very light and easy and a lot of fun. In terms of horsepower, this has got quite a lot less horsepower than the big GS, but of course it's a lot lighter, and the torque is delivered in the low rev range, so it does two things. You can bimble along, combined with the handling, it's nice and easy, it feels incredibly relaxing. But pull the throttle back, and I'm not saying it tears your arms out the sockets, but it really pulls you hard, which makes it great fun as well. So if you get where I'm going, with the first impressions, easy to ride, but a lot of fun. And on some levels, in this weather, I don't care what I'm riding because it's sunny and I'm on a bike, but I'm really glad I'm riding this one. If you've got Action Man eagle eyes, you may be wondering exactly what the option 719 means on the left cylinder head cover. If you're a BMW owner or enthusiast, you might already know the answer. There are a range of specially designed optional accessories, such as billet packs, that allow you to bespoke the look of your favoured machine. Simple as that. Now, there's some obvious comparisons to be made between this bike and others, such as Ducati's Scrambler, Triumph Scrambler, or even the R9T Scrambler. The different configurations of engine and power alone on the Ducati and Triumph would probably make your mind sway one way or the other. And the prices might help make your mind up as well. The Ducati is under 10 grand, the Triumph starts at 12, and the BMW at 14. And whilst the R9T Scrambler has the same chassis and engine as the Urban GS, it's a Scrambler, not a GS, and surely that's the point. Right, we're back at Cotswold BMW Motorrad on a very sunny, if slightly chilly afternoon. Consequently, there's probably going to be loads of bikes riding around whilst I'm chattering away. Now, I've got a slight confession to make. The R9T never floated my boat in terms of its looks until I saw this one, and I think it is stunning. It looks absolutely beautiful. And BMW have done a really good job with a balance of the technology. There's enough to keep you safe and keep you interested, but also not too much, so it kind of keeps the spirit alive of the old bike. I asked the question right at the start, is the GS still a GS? And that's a question I'm still trying to answer. The answer is really quite simple. Like I said before, it's white wine and champagne. It's not the same bike. That doesn't mean it's not an absolutely fantastic machine in its own right. But if the thing you're after is the spiritual successor to the old bike, then I don't think you can go far wrong with one of these.
You know what, Graham? Initially I thought that was a bit of a weird question to ask about the BMW, but now watching it kind of makes sense.
Good, because that was my plan.
Now, so for the past 4 episodes, we've been following the boys on their adventure in a sidecar around Cornwall. And it's time to see where they're going to finish in this tale from the trails.
Because I'm a nice and good friend to Tom, despite his reaction when we got to Ashbourne Woods at the front and he saw the words wild camping and thought it was going to be awful, I wasn't going to put him through another night of camping. I'll come back to that in a moment. But this is Ashbourne Woods, and they call it a wild camping site, but they've got a mixture of beautiful kind of wild looking tent pitches and cabins and tents, etc. And it is absolutely stunning, this place. There is a reason why we come to cabins as much as doing camping and wild camping. It's because Tom's a wuss and doesn't like camping. Nice. But what Tom told me to say was not that he was a wuss. It was we come to cabins and stuff because we have cameras that need charging up. We need to do all the backup of the filming we've been doing during the day, which is all true. But he's still a wuss. Despite my constant ribbing of Tom about his lack of enthusiasm for camping, actually, in fairness, these types of cabins are a really, really good balance of the things I love about camping and not being freezing cold like we were last night, and a bit of comfort. Because you've still got outside, you've got open fire, a picnic table to sit at which is comfortable, beautiful surroundings, but a cabin. Oh, and we have showers, of course, which is just amazing. Not here, but over in the block. But the cabin's lovely, apart from our mess. I just wanted to reflect briefly, again, on another day of riding on the sidecar outfit. I won't go back to the other stuff we were saying about the challenges, the physical challenges of riding it. They've done that, said that. But one of the marvellous things about it, absolutely marvellous, is the attention it has been attracting, and it seems to have attracted a very particular and very new audience for us, which is older ladies. I'm talking kind of grandma kind of older ladies, and there's a very good reason for that. And there's been 3 or 4 who have just walked up to us and gone, that reminds me of when I was a youngster and me and my husband drove round and I was in the sidecar. And that's not been sexist, that was very much, obviously there were ladies riding bikes and stuff at the time, but it was of an age in the kind of 60s, I guess, when the husband would be riding the bike and the wife would be in the sidecar. And it obviously has huge nostalgic memories, and it creates great emotion for them because they don't just come up and go, oh, that's nice. They come up and they really, really want to talk about the stuff they did and why they were doing it and where they went. And then that, of course, turns into a life story, which we've had several of. And that's all really nice. So that's been a real positive today. The next morning, we were up early for the final day of riding. And we were going to get stuck into some tet. Well, that was the plan. But the first bit of tet we came across presented a bit of a problem. Right, this bit's going to be interesting. whoa, okay. All right. Okay. Yeah. Let me, God, I don't know where to start with the hazards of this on a outfit. Whether it's the boulders, the roots. I mean, that's not a rut, that's a riverbed. And even if you're coming up here on a Africa Twin, I mean, it's kind of doable, but if you get it wrong, there's nowhere to go on the left-hand side, on the right-hand side. Oh, I mean, there's like, used to be a concrete path across here or something, but I mean, that's, again, dirt bike, no problem. But this, actually, to be fair, I'd probably really enjoy this on a dirt bike. That'd be a lot of fun, but not on the outfit. That ain't gonna happen. But, as we always say, it's all part of the adventure. Despite it all being part of the adventure, we had to backtrack, pushing the outfit back down the hill. We went off to find some slightly more forgiving tet, and on our way, Tom decided to talk about what it's like to be a passenger in the sidecar.
Okay, so I thought I'd give you a little overview of what life is like travelling inside a sidecar. So there are many advantages and disadvantages to riding in a sidecar. One of the biggest advantages is if you are annoyed or don't like the person who's driving, you can very easily spend a lot of time annoying them. For instance, doing things like this. Or getting really creepy like this. Ooh. No! Ah! Other advantages, you can eat. So, for example, in here, I have... Now, technically, I think the law says you don't have to wear a helmet in the sidecar, but don't hold me to that, I'm not sure. But, you know, you certainly can eat if you wish, although I'm not convinced this is going to... I'm not elegant. So you also get lots of little kind of things you can play with. Like, you know, there's a little bar here. You get a little kind of cushion. I don't know where you can see that. Nice little cushion there. Well, it's not really a cushion. It's a kind of blanket. Keeps you nice and warm. I mean, you know, you also get to look around a lot. You know, you don't have to concentrate on the road. If I want to look over here, I can look over here, which currently is just a hedge, so it's not terribly exciting. But I can look over here. And I can look at the scenery. I can fall asleep, which I've done a few times now. I mean, if anything, it's just a bit dull, if I'm honest. It has certainly been an experience, and I'd do it. Well, no, I wouldn't do it again if I'm honest, but it's been an experience.
Soon we were back on the TED, which conveniently led right to the door of where we are finishing the trip. It's almost like I planned it that way. We are back on our friend the Tet this afternoon, and the great thing is the bit of Tet we're riding on is very farm traily, so it's wide enough and just about flat enough to take the sidecar outfit on. But my god, it's still hard work. You're just fighting all the time where it wants to pivot one way or the other. But the nice thing is, it's doable. The TET was really hard work for me. That bike is such a handful, and from the various cries of pain coming over the intercom from Tom, it was no walk in the park for him either. But then, as we all know, he does like to complain a lot.
Ow, ow, ow. Ow.
This morning we're at Wealdon Farm, but the name doesn't really do the place justice because, as you can see behind us, this is far more than a farm. We've got an indoor bike track here and there's tracks outside. I'm here with Andrew, who owns the farm and the track and everything here, but you've had a really interesting history with running bike stuff here, haven't you?
I have, thank you, Graham, and thank you for coming. Now, where do I start? It was a farm. It was a dairy farm, and we had sort of big buildings, and we sort of converted it into this. So I had an accident on the farm actually. So I was nothing to do with bikes, and ended up sort of thinking, well, what can we do with the place? And we had some holiday cottages, and this was, well, let's try and make something, an added attraction for people to come to us all year round. And this is what we came up with. And we've been doing it for 20 years.
We're hoping to ride the Africa Twin around the track a bit later, but in the meantime there's a father and son who are out on track on their WR250s. And it's just a perfect example of what this place is about. You know, it's a father and son, they can come here, they can ride, it's safe, and we're going to show you what they're doing.
Okay, so Paul and Jasper, father and son, we're here at Wealdon. We're quite regular visitors here. Sometimes we come and do a day trip. It takes us 2 hours to drive here, 2 hours back, but it's still worth it. Other times we come and stay at the self-catering cottages and do 3 or 4 nights. And the wonderful thing for us here is that no matter what the weather, we can always have fun. There's an indoor barn for when the weather's not good for us, and when the weather's great, we can go outdoors, and there's a fantastic outdoor track and various lanes, green lanes that we can explore. And for us, that the level that we're at, it can help build us up from kind of a beginner level to an intermediate level, where we're at the point where we're confident enough to then go and do some events at standard motocross days at tracks all around the country. We're not quite at that level yet, but we're getting quite close.
So we've got the Africa Twin in the indoor off-road track, and we said to Graham that we'd wait for him to come back before we did this. But we lied, and we want to have a quick few laps in, because we're going to do timed laps, and basically we just want to beat Graham. Unfortunately though, we don't have the Dunlop 908s on, which is a bit of a pain.
Why don't we have the 908s on it?
I may or may not have forgotten to bring the inner tubes, but that's not the point. The point is, well, the way I see it is that it's going to stop us doing, well, being exuberant with the throttle, he says. But let's wait and see. So we're going to go have a quick few laps and see what happens.
So Sam, what did I ask you to do about 2 seconds ago?
Not to be too exuberant.
And what were you?
A bit exuberant.
This is why Honda hates you.
Look at how well it was doing.
What do you have against Hondas?
I don't. I love Hondas.
So what did you ruined the 125.
It's too exciting, this bike. This bike is way too exciting. And plus, we need knobblies. But I should have brought the inner tubes for that.
But I did tell you, because of the tyres, go easy.
Yes.
Did I go around the track?
Yeah.
Did I come off?
No, because you were too slow.
There's always one, and Sam's both of them.
Yeah, but you dropped the bike, you've dented the Honda, you should feel a little bit bad about that.
I do feel a little bit bad about it.
Just a tiny bit.
But the whole point behind an adventure bike is having an adventure. And I had an adventure, but it may have been laid down.
On its side.
On its side.
Anyway,
Horizontal adventure.
No,
Yes.
no, that's a different adventure.
So, Sam and Tom have been practicing. So
No,
obviously,
no.
so obviously
I
my
got
lap,
a lap
my lap
before he crashed the bike.
That's still more than me. But there was no way we could come here and not take the Africa Twin round and just see carefully-ish who could go round the fastest.
Why do we have to be so careful? Is it because they've got the wrong tyres on? Now, we bought some off-road tyres for this bike, didn't we?
Mm-hmm.
Why couldn't we put them on? It's almost like someone forgot the inner tubes. Be weird, wouldn't it?
Come on, let's get riding.
Yeah.
Your boys ride Supercross, is that right?
Yeah, they do. It's sort of, I never expected them to get to the level there, and I'm very chuffed that they've been supported by Kawasaki UK, and they're their official Team Green riders this year. So I know they're going to concentrate on as much indoor stuff or supercrossy type stuff as you can, and hopefully they'll tick the boxes for them and continue for a long relationship.
So we've been watching some amazing riding here with this young man. Please, tell us your name.
I'm Ben Clayton. I'm from Devon in the UK, and I race and ride motocross for a living.
How long have you been racing?
Racing probably only like 8 years, I'd say, but I've been actually riding for about 15, I'd say.
It was amazing seeing you ride today, and it kind of puts me to shame, especially after laying the bike down twice. Thank you so much for actually showing us.
Oh, no worries, it was an absolute pleasure.
Right, well, we've come to the end of another Tales from the Trails, and it's been, as it always is, completely different. But first of all, I just want to talk to the guys about what it's been like riding the Africa Twin and a sidecar. But let's start, Sam. What's it been like riding the Africa Twin?
Well, do you know what? It's been pretty amazing. I mean, it's one of those bikes which you can literally just sit on for hours and just travel for miles and miles, and it's half decent off road as well. We found. Okay, maybe not so much on an indoor motocross track, but even so, just a delight to ride. You know, probably a bit more so than the person sitting in the sidecar.
Tom, what's the sidecar been like?
Well, at first it was terrifying. Then it was a novelty. Then it was boring, if I'm completely honest. Then we did more of the TET and it was painful. That's pretty much my summary. Yeah.
Okay, well, in terms of driving, and I say driving because it feels more like driving than riding it, it was a unique experience to start with. You always feel like you're fighting it. The upside is you're outside, you're on 2 and a bit
wheels.
So that you're kind of on a bike, but you don't get the stuff I really like about the bike, kind of around the corners and things. But equally, for the purpose it was designed for, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
You can understand why.
Completely, 100%. Yeah, and if that's the way you have to travel, but you still want to be on a bike, it's perfect.
Yeah.
It's
And we've
absolutely
added
perfect.
a nice little bit of history to that bike that already has an amazing history.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
If any sidecar deserved to be on TV, I feel it was that one.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. And so the trip as a whole has been very different. It's just out of lockdown of COVID, but as always, it's been about the people and the people we've met have been amazing and unexpected and found out different things.
Yeah.
Any kind of
Found out a lot about your university days in Plymouth.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was.
well, to me that was a highlight, of course.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah.
And
Super
your
interesting.
motorbike. What is it again?
Do you have a motorbike? What
I
motorbike
can't
do you
remember.
have?
Do you have one of the XC500s?
I think you didn't mention
Oh,
till now. that you
yeah,
had
yeah.
a-
I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yes.
Did you know that Sam's gone around the world twice? He hadn't mentioned that either.
I didn't know that,
No.
but now I do. many times. Yeah. So I think it's been a great trip.
Ah, fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
And hopefully next time we can go abroad.
Hopefully next time there won't be a sidecar.
Now, I do love Cornwall, and I think it has a great variety of stuff to see and do. And the sidecar, I thought was awesome, but maybe the guys would have something else to say about that. I just can't wait to see what they cook up for the next series. Now, it's time for another inspirational rider segment, and for some reason, Tom is going again.
Okay, so this is going to seem a bit cheesy, and he probably wouldn't like me doing this, but alongside Sam Manicum, I think one of the most inspirational people I have ever met in the motorcycling world is the host of this show, Graham Hoskins. There is a lot about Graham that people don't know, and in truth, not that I'd say it to his face, he's actually quite an amazing bloke. So before I get into why I think he's awesome, let me tell you the story of Graham. The story of Graham. Have you ever noticed that he's got a bit of a weird run? If you haven't, look out for it. I spend a lot of time rather cruelly laughing at his very weird run, but it's there for a reason. In university, Graham was all set to be a fighter pilot. So he'd been accepted by the Royal Navy, and it looked like his dream of flying fast jets was just around the corner. Then one day, while taking a shower, he found a lump under his arm. It was cancer. And instantly, his dream of flying for the Navy just disappeared overnight, instantly. And he entered a year of chemotherapy and radiotherapy and all sorts of other really nasty stuff. And he kept his spirits high through it, and he came out the other side with a bit less hair, but more importantly, he was cancer-free. However, it wasn't the end of his woes. As a side effect of the treatment they were giving him for the cancer, a huge amount of damage was done to his hip joints. So soon after, he was faced with a double hip replacement. a double hip replacement while still in his 20s. That earns him some respect in my book. I mean, I don't give him any respect at all, but he deserves it. So I first met Graham just after his first TV series with Danny John Jules called Mad in the Med. This is something else inspirational. Like so many other people, myself included, he'd watched The Long Way Round and loved it. Like so many others, he had wanted to do something like it himself. And like very few others, he actually did. Graham decided that, as fantastic as The Long Way Round was, for most people it was just impractical to go away on a motorcycle adventure for months and months and months. So he wanted to prove that you could have just as amazing an adventure in a much, much shorter timescale. In fact, he had already kind of proved this when he rode to Moscow and back in a long weekend. So yeah, there's another awesome thing he's done. He somehow managed to talk a local dealership into giving him and a mate each a bike to ride. Don't know how he did that. That's incredible, especially at the time. Yeah, so anyway, back to his first TV series. He wanted to do an awesome trip around the Mediterranean, but in just 2 weeks. And then not long before leaving, his friend pulled out, and he was left with bikes from Honda, a plan, and no one to go with. But this is Graham, and giving up is not really an option for him. So he calls MCM Magazine, gets some contact details of people who guest edited the magazine, and a few days later he's sitting in a London pub with the cat from Red Dwarf, as you do. And they're sitting there planning a motorcycle trip together. Incredible. Then when they return, he gets the footage edited. He sells the series to the Extreme Sports channel. You know, like getting stuff on TV is just really easy. Then that's it. He's got a show on TV. Then I met Graham at the NEC Motorcycle Show. He was looking for a cameraman, and a mutual friend introduced us after I prodded my friend to do that. He was planning a trip down to Dakar for the new series with Danny, and this time they wanted a cameraman who could ride along with them and film. And I'd done a similar trip the year before, so I was asked to join them, and it was awesome. Since that TV series, Graham and I have become pretty good friends, and we have made a lot more TV together. And he's just a really great bloke. He's a really great to hang out with, and you know, he's a good friend. As much as I keep trying to get him to join me, filming full time by the way, he still does his day job, some boring management consultancy thing, which I'm sure he enjoys, but to me sounds so dull. But he's mostly staying, I think, because he's built a successful business with his business partner, and he wouldn't want to leave his business partner in the lurch because he's a pretty nice and loyal friend like that. Over the years, as well as a friend, he's given me sound business advice, sound personal advice, and although a joke about him my dreams, he's a voice of reason and does a great job stopping me getting distracted, which is really, really depressingly easy thing for me to do. And the thing I find most inspiring about Graham, however, isn't overcoming cancer or making a TV series from nothing or being great at advice. It's his family. Graham has a wonderful family. He has a beautiful wife, 3 awesome kids who are absolute credit to him, and his wife, Michelle. They are all over 18 now because, you know, he's old. But none of them have lost that respect and love for him. Only recently, I genuinely heard his oldest daughter saying that he was a hero. And although most kids see their dads as a hero, it tends to kind of wear off a bit as they get older. So when your daughter, who is now in her 20s, is still saying you're their hero, you're doing something right. And that's what I really aspire to be. A great dad, like my mate Graham.
I actually saw that video for the first time earlier on today, and I genuinely had no idea Tom was going to do it, and I was really a bit choked when I saw it, and I'm a little bit lost for words, to be honest. other than to say, thank you, Tom, that's really appreciated. And now it's time for my 24-hour adventure, and I did mine in a van. Welcome to my 24-hour adventure, and for the eagle-eyed amongst you, you may have spotted that I'm not on my bike. Indeed, I'm actually in my van, but there's a very, very good reason for that. And that's because there are so many people who take their bikes in their vans to the place they're going to go and ride. And Tom's brief to me was that I need to spend as much time as I can riding off-road. So I've minimised the time it's taking me to get to the place where we're going to go and do riding, because I'm going to be in the van. Now, what I do need to say is that anything that we're doing in this 24-hour adventure is possible to do just on the bike, without the van, with all the travelling kit. And speaking of the bike, let me get out and I'll show you what I got. So, I'm really quite excited about this because it's the first time I've ridden this bike in anger. Behold the beauty and the magnificence of my KTM EXC 500. Now really, this is, in theory, a race machine, but there are so many people who use these for actually round the world trips now and have got hundreds and thousands of hours on them, tens of thousands of miles. And for me, this is the first time I've had the opportunity to actually get out and ride my bike on some trails. So there are many benefits in my head about doing the adventure this way around. One is I'm not putting loads of road miles onto what is essentially really an off-road bike, although as I said earlier, you can go around the world and do many miles on tarmac if you want to. But for me, I'm saving the hours I put on the bike for the stuff that it's really meant for, which is going on the trails. It also means I can carry a bit more kit, and actually as we're doing filming, obviously, we can carry the filming kit in here. It also means if it's wet and miserable on the way here, I stay nice and warm before I get here. And also, actually, really importantly, I've got somewhere warm and dry to stay in the evenings once I've finished riding. The only downside is it can be a bit awkward getting it in and out, because as you'll see, it's a bit of a tight fit. Oh, it's a very tight squeeze. I do have a little mini, kind of like a mini rally tower on here, but when it's on there, it won't fit in the van, so I've got to take it off before I put it back in. But it's a 5-minute job to get it back on. Of course, there's one other really big advantage of having a van on a trip like this. It means I don't have to get my butt out al fresco, so I can go and change in the van. It's been quite a while since I've been to Salisbury Plain. Last time I came was on my 690 Enduro R, and I had a fantastic time, but it's really reminded me the difference it makes riding a lightweight bike and one incredible place with such a variety of terrain to ride over. I just wanted to take a moment to explain the difference between a byway open to all traffic, a boat, and a permissive byway, because the two things are quite different. So the boat, anybody can use it, pretty much any kind of vehicle, as long as your vehicle can get through it. Whereas a permissive byway, we're only allowed to use it because, in this case, Salisbury Plain training area allow us to use it. So we have to be very careful because there may be sudden noises, tanks or live firing exercises, whatever. We may be stopped or diverted, and you've got to give way to any military vehicles that are coming across. Although, in fairness, I think even if I was on a byway open to all traffic and a military vehicle came across, I still want to give way to it. One of the many fabulous things about riding around on a place like Salisbury Plain is because there are so many byways all crossing and intersecting. If there's a bit you like, there's nothing stopping you just turning around and doing it again. Or if you find a loop that you enjoy, just do it again and again and again. Exactly as I've been doing today. Compared to many, I've had a reasonably short history with riding off-road, which started slightly crazily with my GS 1150 Adventure. And the first time I did it, I absolutely hated every second of it. Until the last half hour when I started to go, oh, actually, this is a bit different. And then I had my KTM 1190 Adventure R, which I did a few bits of off-roading on. And then I went a bit smaller. So I went for a KTM 690R, which was almost the perfect adventure bike in many respects, and I've said that on the show before. Then I had an old 525 EXC, and that brought me into the realms of what is effectively a race bike, but people have gone around the world on those bikes. And went back to a 690 for lots of different reasons, but that pull of the just over 100 kilos weight of bike brought me back to what is now a 500 EXC, and it is astonishingly good fun, and it completely flatters my riding. I don't know if the camera's picking up the sound. There's a helicopter that's been going and circling around over us, and it's another great thing about Salisbury Plain if you like all things military, because today we've seen Land Rovers, army trucks, a tank in the distance, Chinooks come over, and that's either a Lynx or a Puma over there. It's landed just beyond the tree line. So this EXC 500's got quite an interesting history. It was actually bought by a pupil of Patsy Quick's down at her Desert Rose training facility. He went and did his training on it, and then he took it on 2 or 3 rallies, so it's been abroad. It used to have a full rally kit on it, but he took that off to sell that separately, and that's where I bought it from, through Patsy, from this guy. And I've only made a few changes to it myself, very, very simple ones. I wanted to have the indicators back on it. So when you buy these bikes, you do get an indicator pack, but because it's a race bike, most people don't bother. Because I'm doing a mixture of road and off-road, I like to have the indicators. It makes me feel safer. Second one is this adventure spec kind of mini rally front. That's there for 2 reasons. It gives me a little bit of wind protection, but mainly it puts my sat nav way up higher, so it makes it much easier for me to see it. Third one is this is the KTM Power Parts seat. It's just a little bit thicker, a little bit more comfortable. And the last one is an ignition map switch here. So this is dead easy. It's just switches between 2 different ignition maps. One's a bit harder, one's a bit softer, and actually allows you electronically to turn the traction control off, and it bolts on here and it's a plug and play. I mean, literally it took me 10 minutes to put it on. We've finished all our riding for today, and it's time to load the bike back up into the van and head off to our overnight accommodation. And I have got no idea where we're going or what we're doing, although Tom has assured me it is in keeping with the nature and the style of our 24-hour adventure. We have finally arrived at the place where we are going to sleep this evening, and in all the things I expected that it might be, nowhere in my mind did I think it would be a hammock. And that's what you can see. Well, you can see the tarp going over the hammock behind me, but there is a luxury hammock inside there, and that's where we're going to be sleeping, in hammocks tonight. This place is called New Forest Hammocks. It's in a piece of ancient woodland. It is actually within the proper boundaries of the New Forest. These guys are allowed to have these hammocks here 28 days a year, and anybody can come and stay at them. I think there's a maximum of 6 people here at a time. There's a composting toilet, there's a cold shower, but you can put warm water in it that you can boil on the fire. There's an open fire, and it's just the most stunning place. But as I am looking round, I've just come to realise there's only one hammock, so where's Tom sleeping? If he's in the van, I'm going to kill him. So the hammock is here, my sleeping bag in there. I just don't think there's any graceful way to do this at all. Could you start thinking to yourself, how do I get my boots off? Okay. 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 We're good. We're in. Oh, buddy, this is so comfy. Bear in mind how cold it's been outside. Although my upper body's been fine and my head's been warm, my legs have been really, really chilly. And as soon as we walked away from the fire, oh, but this is really cosy. So we'll see you in the morning. This is my ever so lovely first thing in the morning sleeping outside face. No bags underneath my eyes, no grit in them, but it's all part of the adventure. And actually, in all honesty, I slept much better than I expected to last night. I think it's one of the first nights of camping I've ever done where I have no backache at all whatsoever, so huge tick for the hammock. Doesn't give me backache. Was I warm enough? I was definitely warm enough. So another tick for the hammock because it was pretty chilly last night. It does feel just a little bit claustrophobic inside when you've got basically the tent that far, that close to your face. And there was a couple of times where I did have to just open the zip and sit my face out into the fresh air. So I think the only thing that kept me awake was the noise of the animals. And if you're a reasonably light sleeper, bit of a schoolboy error, should have brought my earplugs along. I think if I had my earplugs, I would have had an absolutely cracking night's sleep. Yeah, it wasn't too bad at all, really. After my surprisingly comfortable night's sleep in the hammock last night, this is where we're going to start our riding today, and apparently it's going to be a very different type of riding. But we've only got till 12, so I need to crack on. I mentioned a while ago that I would explain a little bit more about our route today, and we are back with our old friend the TET, the Trans-Euro Trail. I think what I love about the TET is we are, I guess, 2 or 3 hours ride away from where we were yesterday, and yet the contrast couldn't be greater. We're in open fields, farmland, rutted trails, and we are about 20 minutes, maybe even 10 minutes south of Basingstoke. So we're really close to a big city, and yet it feels like we're in the middle of nowhere. I love the TET. We've stopped here for 2 reasons. And the first one is because it's a perfect example of where you can and cannot ride on the Tet. Tet comes to my left and goes up the hill. Behind Tom, there's a footpath and a bridle path that looks like you could ride on it, but absolutely you should not. And to my right, it looks like a trail, but there's something interesting down there that I want to go and look at, and that's the second reason why we've stopped. Now, I know some people would say, why don't you just ride your bike down there? It's only 50 metres away. But I'm a bit of a stickler for the rules, because if we don't stick to the rules, then someone in the powers that be will make the rules stiffer and we'll just lose the places like this where we can ride. It would probably be fair to say, and in fact quite a number of my friends have actually said, that I can be a little bit boring when it comes to history and places to go and look at. I'm that kind of person who walks around the museum and has to read every single thing about every single artefact in there, because I'm just genuinely interested and I don't care, they think I'm boring. But this building behind me just caught my attention because it looks like some kind of old chapel. It does say keep out, but the door's open, so we're just going to open the door, take a peek in. Obviously we won't walk inside, and I'm going to be super boring, and when I get home I'm going to look up and actually see what it is. Well, sadly, it's the end of my 24-hour adventure. It's been almost the perfect mix for me. Salisbury Plain, Hampshire, a little bit of tarmac, the hammock, of course, tick that box, always wanted to try that. And importantly as well, we didn't have to do this in the van. I could have slung some luggage over the bike and done it on the bike, but the van's just added a different dimension for me. But as it's only just gone midday, I don't have to be home until much, much later, so I'm going to carry on riding.
I think that's a great way of doing it. A bike in the van, especially in the winter, perfect.
In fairness, you don't have to have the van, you could just do it with the bike.
I have to admit though, that hammock, how were you not freezing?
I would say I was warmish. Anyway, it's time to end season 8, but we'll be back next year. And in the meantime, keep an eye out for our brand new show, Motorbike TV, with myself, Bruce Smart and Christy Simmons. We'll be riding, talking and looking at all manner of bikes and biking hobbies. You can watch the show on all the same platforms that you can watch Adventure Bike TV. Ride safe everybody, and we'll see you very soon.